the value of my peace supersedes the need for me to explain myself. Hello everyone, my name is Edna Njeri. I create lifestyle, wellness, productivity, and self-improvement content. So if any of that interests you, make sure you subscribe. Welcome to a new episode of Makeup and Mindset. Makeup and Mindset is a series here on my channel where I get ready while talking about different topics. Today's topic is self-awareness. I want to talk about self-awareness because first of all, it's been such a prominent theme for me this year, but also because I think self-awareness is romanticized and it's not a bed of roses. It's definitely a beautiful thing, an amazing thing, brings a lot of peace and joy, but it's also very challenging and it changes a lot about just the whole landscape of your life, your ecosystem, the people in your life, and not always in the easiest way. So for this video, I'm going to be sharing my experience with self-awareness, some thoughts I have, the positives that it has brought to my life, as well as the challenges while we create this warm look. So without further ado, let us get into the video. Okay, so let's start with what self-awareness actually is. So basically, self-awareness represents the ability to become the object of one's own attention. According to Baumeister's 2005 article, self-awareness is about anticipating how others perceive you, evaluating yourself and your actions according to collective beliefs and values, as well as caring about how others evaluate you. So from the definition, it's reflective, it's evaluative, and it allows you to understand your own strengths and weaknesses, but also how others perceive you and your strengths and your weaknesses. So every year I like to set an intention just for the overall year, and this year my intention was clarity. I had really started working on myself, and I would say like my spiritual journey last year. So I was like, this year I just want to have more clarity in all areas of my life, my relationships, my career, my content, every single thing. A huge part of that is self-awareness, and that has become very clear to me throughout this year in many different ways. So it has had its positives and its negatives. So those are the things we're going to get into, and I think we will start with the challenges. Starting off with one of the most obvious ones, that you can't switch it off. Once you've started taking part in the reflection and evaluation that is self-awareness, you can't opt out, you can't turn it off, you can't just be like, oh, okay. You know how people can just be so ignorant and so oblivious to things and they just have the best time and the easiest time? Some days I do want to be like those people and just not have to think too much or worry too much, but there's no such thing as opting out. Once you're self-aware, you're self-aware. And that also means that escapism does not hit the same way. Like previously, I could be stressed about something or worried about something and just be like, I'm going out, I'm going to have fun and forget about everything. That's a form of escapism. And now that I'm more self-aware, that just does not hit the same. I'll be like, okay, let's go out and have fun. And then the entire time I'll be out, I'll be actually thinking about what brought me out. And so I won't actually be enjoying myself, I'll just be psychoanalyzing myself. And that's always fun. Unfortunately for me, I have to actually deal with the thing at hand, because otherwise I will be out the entire time questioning why I'm out and just being it's giving wet blanket. Like, I would not be fun to be around. So self-awareness has also meant that I do not have as many friends as I thought I did. This is partly because I am more picky now, but also partly because my boundaries are stronger now. Again, we'll keep going back to the definition of self-awareness in terms of it being about reflecting and evaluating your individual decisions and experiences and being able to see your strengths and weaknesses. So for me, through this evaluation and reflection, it's become more clear to me who my friends are, who my acquaintances are, who are just colleagues, who are just people who are friends of friends. Like, all those little categories have become a bit more defined, which is amazing when you think about it in terms of clarity, but it's also kind of a bummer when you think that you kind of have to lose some people, let some people go. I just don't have the capacity to take on any unnecessary energy, and I'm very clear. Okay, I'm still getting clear, so I would say I'm consistently filtering people out of my life, filtering energy and just being way more intentional. Another thing that self-awareness has brought into my life, which honestly I'm not so sure how I feel about. Like, I like it, I appreciate the value, but I'm also just like, sometimes I want it to stop. I'm consistently mentally analyzing myself. I can't just be doing things. I'm like, why am I doing it? And why is that the reason?
And where does that reasoning stem from? Is that actually like a value I want? Or is it just like an insecurity or trauma that's making me make that decision?
Honestly, I know no rest. I've also had to make peace with a lot of things find yourself clocking new things. Sometimes you even find your brain unlocking new memories, which is always fun. You start to peep a lot of ways that you were feeding into negative cycles in your life. And so then you start to make peace with things, make peace with people, make peace with situations, just accept things for how they are. And that sounds like a positive thing, but I mean, yeah, it is a positive thing. But it is quite challenging, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it kind of sucks. Like, if you're being honest, it does kind of suck to realize some situations will never really serve you. And that also comes with realizing that you just have to be the bigger person in situations, even when you don't want to be the bigger person, even when you know the other person does not deserve your grace. But you just have to do it for yourself. You just have to do it for yourself. You just have to do it for yourself. I'm the type of person who previously, like, especially in situations where I feel like someone has wronged me, like it was their fault, they did the wrong thing, and that's not what's being perceived by other people, or I don't feel like my point has been seen or heard. I was the type of person who would feel the need to really explain my point. Like, you need to understand this, you are going to understand this. That's changed now. I just don't have the capacity to hold that anger in me, because literally it will eat me up. I will keep thinking about it. I will keep playing that scenario over and 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 over again in my head. So for my sake, I would rather just let go of that anger, make peace with it. Everyone has their side of the story, everyone has their opinion. The value of my peace supersedes the need for me to explain myself. It's just like the people who really need to know will know, and they will know where I stand. And then they can choose to stand with me, or they can choose not to stand with me, and that's perfectly okay either way. I had to let go of that need to control people or to change people's opinions in situations, because you literally cannot change anyone. You can love someone to death and still not be able to change them. You can spend years of your life explaining yourself to someone, explaining what you need to someone, and you still won't change them. Okay, so I've wet my sponge. Let's see how much of this we can take off. I'll just have to set it as well. I'm just setting this also to help neutralize it. So something else that over-explaining also comes with is uncomfortable conversations happen more frequently. So you may have been doing things, but now because you've been evaluating yourself and trying to figure yourself out, you start to admit truths to yourself that maybe previously you always knew, like deep down you always knew that was the truth, but you had covered it up with all these other external things and made yourself think that this wasn't the truth. But now you've realized a certain truth, you've had to admit it, and with that comes the need to communicate that truth to whichever parties are involved, or to like your partner or family, whoever. Another source of uncomfortable conversations is having to enforce boundaries, which previously you always knew there was a need for the boundary. You always knew, low-key, like in the back of your mind you were like, yeah, this always makes me uncomfortable, this situations make me uncomfortable, but then now you never really communicated it, and then now you have to have that conversation of communicating a boundary that you always let people cross, and then now it's non-negotiable for you and you have to let them know that. So much fun to do that. I'm just setting the parts of my face that get oily before I put on my concealer, foundation, all of that. A reminder that there's way too many people not addressing things just to keep things cool. And it's not fun, because sometimes you can be like, oh, am I making a big deal out of things? Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that, maybe I shouldn't like bring this up, because who really cares? But if you're feeling the need to bring it up, bring it up. You're more likely to regret not bringing it up than you are to regret saying how you felt about a situation. And those conversations also really help you see the quality of your friendships, how your friends will take it, how they'll respond. And that really tells you where you stand with people. It might sound like I'm being dramatic, but like if you don't have the space in your friend group to bring up when you're uncomfortable, when you feel like things aren't cool, then are they really your friends? Like, really? I've gone on a whole tangent, but my point was that uncomfortable conversations come up frequently. You can't not address things. You can't let things slide as much as you used to. Okay, finally, the last challenge or negative aspect of being self-aware is that the idea of doing something for the sole purpose of being a part of or belonging is off-putting. Like, you just can't do it. Yeah, the idea of doing something to fit in or to belong is so off-putting. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it changes the dynamic of your friendships, your relationships, and that's not usually fun. And now we can finally move on to my favorite things about being self-aware and end this video on a high. Starting with the ability to catch myself before I get too negative. Because I'm paying more attention to my emotions and how they're impacting my behavior, before negative patterns start to form, like I can see it coming. I can see the negativity coming, and then I know what to do to just stop it in its tracks before it's out of hand. And I love that because it's harder for me to end up in a negative mental space. I think that's actually a part of emotional intelligence. I would say emotional intelligence comes with self-awareness. Another thing that I'm also loving with the whole self-awareness thing is it's like I'm getting to know myself all over again. It's so nice to know what you like and know what feels good, which sounds so obvious, but knowing what actually pours into you, knowing what you can actually do. As I said, you can see the patterns forming, you want to stop them. Knowing what you can do to stop them, and genuinely what feels good to just you, outside of everyone, outside of all your relationships. Being in tune with what feels good to you, amazing, top tier feeling. Would highly recommend to a friend. I also really love that my boundaries are so much more clear now, clearer than they ever been. That's the one thing I'm usually like, oh, I wish I could go back to being in this stage of my life, like in previous stages of my life, and just have the boundaries I have now. But I guess it's just like the learning curve. I had to go through whatever to get to this point. It's so great because it actually leads to my next point, which is the quality of my relationships has improved. Because when you have that balance of the give and take in your relationships, that's how your relationships stay healthy. I'm just going over with a brush with nothing on it just to blend in between where my highlight is and where the foundation is. Okay, I'm pretty happy with my base now. I think I'm gonna go ahead and do my lashes. I've been doing my lashes after everything. It actually saves a lot of time, you would be surprised. So as I speak on the last point, I'm gonna prep my lashes. I'm using the Style Honey, which I've never used. I always use Winks, but I've never used the Style Honey. I always use the Style Cookie. My last point as I do this is self-awareness has made me more understanding of others. I'm just seeing how much I need to cut because it's quite long. From getting to understand yourself, you realize how much people are just consistently projecting. First of all, nobody knows what they're doing. You realize how much people are projecting, how much people are just figuring themselves out. Everyone is just trying to figure themselves out. So you don't take things as personally. You just kind of, for me, I'm more nonchalant about things that would previously bug me. So I found that I am more understanding of others in that I just don't take things personally. It is what it is, and that's okay. So with that being said, I'm gonna go put on my lashes off camera, finish up with my eyes, maybe put on some highlight, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so this is the final look. I went ahead and added some highlight, put my hair up in a bun, and now we are done. I love how it turned out. So that is it for this episode of Makeup and Mindset. Please let me know if some of the points resonated with you, either the positives or the negatives. And also let me know if I missed out on anything, because there's definitely a lot of different things that come up, and I would love to know what your experience has been. So with that, I'd just like to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.